If you played Valorant between the dates of November 16th, 2021 and December 6th, 2022, you played against what is now referred to as Old Chamber. This version of Chamber had a pick rate of 44% at Masters Reykjavik, 77% at Masters Copenhagen, and 67% at Champions Istanbul. Let's look at Masters Copenhagen, where Chamber was picked 77% of the time. Throughout VCT history, the only agent that has seen a higher pick rate than Chamber in Copenhagen was Jett throughout 2021. But just so people can understand what a different time this was for professional Valorant, just know that Sage was picked more than KO, and Reyna was still part of the meta. Since the Chamber meta, the agent with the highest pick rate at a major event was Killjoy, at VCT Lock-In at 70%. The version of Chamber played in Copenhagen is the strongest agent to ever touch the VCT circuit, but why did teams pick him? He was overpowered, obviously, but he also opened up team comps. To understand how a team comp is opened, let's enter the hypothetical. Imagine a new agent is added to Valorant, but they don't fit into any of the current agent types. They're a sort of hybrid, the ultimate support player. Their abilities are Omen's Smoke, Killjoy's Alarm Bot, KO's Flashes, and their ultimate ability is Gekko's Thrash. So now let's think, what 4 other agents would you pick alongside our hybrid? When putting a team comp together in Valorant, there are 6 boxes you need to check: Smokes, Recon, Flashes, Drone, Dive, and Passive Info. Our hybrid agent checks 3 of those boxes by himself. Add in an agent like Sova or Fade for Recon and Drone, and finish things off with a duelist like Jett or Raze for Dive, and that's every box on our checklist filled. But we still have 2 more agents to pick, which means that our team comp is now open. So now let's think again. How do you fill the other 2 slots? Do you want more explosiveness? Pick up 2 more initiators. Do you want more stalling power for defense and post plants? Pick up another controller and sentinel. Do you want to play like Paper X? Throw in 2 more duelists. The point is that our hybrid agent has opened up the team comp and that potentially off-meta agents will see play. Teams now have the freedom to try different agents that best suit their players and playstyles. But back to Chamber. Chamber wasn't a Frankenstein killing machine. He was simply overpowered. Let's look at a recent example of an overpowered agent that opened up team comps. ISO. He was recently buffed into a viable agent at the pro level, and many teams started implementing him into their play. Alfear from Fnatic was a pro player who played ISO in VCT EMEA. But ISO doesn't check off any of our team comp checklist. So Durka played Yoru for Flashes and to help Alpha with some of the entry duties, because Alpha plays Sentinel for Fnatic, not Duelist. From the Americas League, Evil Geniuses had Jogamo play ISO, but he is his team's entry fragger. So Nature played Breach again for Flashes and let Jogamo do all of the entry work. ISO was incredibly strong and forced his way into team comps, opening them up. But ISO doesn't provide great utility. He doesn't check anything off of our team comp boxes, but teams still want him and are willing to pick different agents around him. Picking ISO is an example of bending the team comp rules. Having an ISO usually means that there is no dive, but dive can be made up for with just pressing the W key and hitting your shots. And passive info can be made up for too. We'll get to that part later. Let's enter the hypothetical again. Let's take Valorant in its current state, but make one small change. Let's make it so that Cypher's trips are unbreakable. I know it's crazy, but just stick with me. Our new Cypher is now the best Sentinel in the game by a pretty large margin, and teams are going to force him into every team comp they can. This leaves Killjoy, Chamber, Deadlock, and Sage in a weird position as they serve very little purpose, because Cypher does everything they do, but better. The only way any of these agents get picked is if Cypher is also picked. It's pretty similar to Phoenix today, actually. Phoenix is only really picked alongside KO because both have Flashes, a Molly, and strong ultimates. But the deciding factor is, would you rather have a KO knife or Phoenix wall? Our new Cypher has opened the team comp. Cypher has stolen the Sentinel position and has forced the rest of the team to kind of be built around him. On maps like Ascent, Haven, Lotus, and Icebox, where Killjoy is either the primary Sentinel or has a significant percent of people picking her, Cypher takes the Sentinel duties away from her and forces the rest of the team to be built around him. And that is how you open up a team comp. Overpowered Sentinel taking over Sentinel duties from everybody else and forcing teams to be built around him. Where have I seen this before? Ah, yes, Chamber. The 2022 Chamber was this imaginary Cypher, but better. Remember that this version of Chamber had 2 trips, the same as Cypher and Killjoy, and his other abilities were a Pocket Guardian, a Better Operator, and a Get Out of Jail Free card. Cypher has a camera, 2 cages, and his Neural Theft. Killjoy has 2 mollies and her lockdown. Chamber was just as good of a sentinel as Cypher and Killjoy, but provided more firepower from a rather lacking role. Another overlooked part of Chamber's dominance were the people playing him. Chamber wasn't played by pro team sentinel players. Chamber was played by duelist converts. Ye, Cryocells, and Artists were some of the best Chamber players that had all previously played duelist. These were already elite players given everything they need to get kills without worrying about being punished. They also didn't have to entry frag. Most teams, either aggressive initiator or flex player, took over the entry duties. Victor took over for Ye, Zekin for Cryocells, and Zipant for Artists. This leaves the best player mechanically to pick and choose the fights he wants to take with a Get Out of Jail Free card. Remind me again, how are you supposed to kill him? So now it's time to finish my argument and answer the question why the Chamber meta was good for Valorant. Chamber forced his way into the game, but opened up team comps in the process. Maps like Ascent and Split were both Killjoy and Cypher dominated, but Chamber forced his way into the Sentinel duties for both maps. On maps like Ascent and Icebox, we saw teams like FPX get rid of their dive at times and just had everybody flood in. We even saw teams like DRX challenge whether or not Sentinels were even needed. In their legendary game on Ascent against FPX at Valorant Champs, we saw DRX drop the Sentinel in favor of Fade. But now this raises the question, is sacrificing the passive info worth the extra explosiveness? On some rounds, flanks killed DRX, but on other rounds, having 3 info initiators provided info and explosiveness that other comps can't match. Was Chamber broken? Yes. Am I happy that he's now nerfed? Yes. And that's coming from somebody who mained Chamber. Do I miss seeing pros in the VCT take over games on Chamber? Yes. What Chamber gave us was uncertainty. In a time where the perfect Ascent comp had already been realized by teams like Cloud9 and Vision Strikers, Chamber gave us crazy team comps that teams like Paper X still try and push forward to this day. Chamber gave us creativity, redefined what the Sentinel role was, forced teams to adapt to the changing meta, and change the agents teams selected. One thing many people don't realize is that Chamber's hard counter is KO, and during the Chamber meta, the KO pick rate grew dramatically, and Chamber is somewhat responsible for why KO was so important in the meta today. When the meta changes, teams can either stay the same or open their team comps and try and push the boundaries of what's possible. I will admit, I really want to see something like this happen again. Either a new agent comes along or an existing agent gets buffed and shakes things up. We got it with the ISO and Neon buffs. Who's to say Riot won't make another crazy change?